Hello, everyone. This is Logan Hertz with Hazeltine LLC. We have back with us again in the studio, Mr. D'Andre Clayton of Clayton Financial Solutions. D'Andre, how you doing?
I'm good, Logan, man. How you doing, my brother?
Doing well. I'm doing well. Today, I thought it would be good for D'Andre to share with us some real life stories about how things get real. Sometimes we get a bit too analytical and maybe we don't focus on the human side of this as much as we should. And I want
Mhm.
people to understand the importance of the death benefit protection. We talk a lot about the infinite banking concept, and it is a phenomenal strategy, but that death benefit is the asset, whether we're talking about term life insurance or whole life insurance.
Mhm.
I talk a lot about convertible term, and I talk a lot about making sure that your full human life value is protected, which is more important than infinite banking, or at least comes as a prior step to building capital and becoming our own bankers. The experts on life insurance tell you who they are. They're not fiduciaries. They're not life insurance agents. They're not
Okay.
Wall Street types or bankers or investors or the Robert Kiyosaki's or Dave Ramsey's of the world. The experts in life insurance are widows and orphans. Widows and orphans are the experts in life insurance. I'll take their opinions over anybody else's. So, with that said, let me just hand it over to DeAndre. I want to hear about your experiences delivering actual, real death benefit checks because that's where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, my first one, I ended up actually paying for the client's funeral. I started off doing final expense for clients. When I bought the final expense, the client's parent was already in a funeral home. And unfortunately, she had passed 8 or 9 months after purchase. So, how that normally happens is a back charge and all that kind of stuff. But the way that final expense companies do it is usually whatever the premium is, they'll add like 10% on top. And so they gave her a really menial check, which was nothing close to what the actual amount was supposed to be. And so once I delivered the money, I offered to actually pay for it, and I took care of the funeral arrangements. Um, was that valuable for me from a moral aspect? That's really nice, ethical. It's super nice, even though the client knew that if their parent died, they wouldn't get the full benefit. What it ended in was being a person of my word. Ended up getting a lot of clients that way.
I cannot think of any financial professionals, financial advisors off the top of my head who would step in for a client and pay for the funeral out of my own pocket. Funerals are not cheap. Final expenses, not cheap. That says a lot right there. It reminds me of something that I do, which is not the same, but let's say I have a client and they're considering surrendering a policy. My
Mhm.
first reaction is, I will buy it from you.
Mhm.
Sell it to me. Don't surrender it. Sell it to me. That shows how much I stand behind my products. Like gold and silver dealers and other people like that, they have buyback guarantees.
Mhm.
Like whatever, we will buy it back from you, guaranteed at the current
Mhm.
market price. We can't account for where the price might be, but we'll pay the current market price because we stand behind our products. Anything you have, you sell it back to us. We'll buy it guaranteed. I do the same thing. I don't have a guarantee, but I've never failed to make that offer and then explain to the client all their non-forfeiture options. You have options for keeping this policy in force. And invariably, they decide they want to keep it in force and pay the premium. I'm like, you sure you don't want to sell it to me? I'm right here. I'll buy it. And then when other people come in to sell me their whole life policy, invariably I look at it, I'm like, no, this is not a whole life policy. No.
Right.
People who buy well structured whole life policies are not selling them. They are keeping
Oh,
them.
yeah. Nah, that's a fact. That's the fact. So that was my first experience early on in my career. I wouldn't say it was positive or negative. It was just one of those that you learn a lot more about what you're selling. You might think, oh, well, they're not going to die during a modified death benefit, that kind of thing. And you might take it for granted. It moved me away from final expense, to be quite frank, and made me focus on getting to the person before they need it. Final expense as an option. So my next one was a year and a half after that was a quarter million. the client was your opening statement about widows. I don't think I've ever had a wife die before the husband in all of my examples. Spot on when
Statistically, it happens, but statistically, it's
it
less likely,
happens, but it's
obviously.
very rare. Your point about widows and orphans was sound because you don't run into that often where like there was a death benefit on the wife and then that got paid out to the husband. It's an anomaly. So the next one was 250,000. What was really good about that was she had maybe 40,000 left on the house. And now she was able to completely cover that and didn't have that expense anymore because I really wanted to move towards if we're going to take out a life insurance policy, I need to at least cover the debt on the house. My market was more older people. So most of these policies, I've never had a term policy payout because I was never marketing to younger people at that time. I was mostly marketing to seniors. So,
More than 98% of term policies never pay out. And again, nothing wrong with term. That's what it
right,
is. It's protection. It's
right,
not a guaranteed payout.
right. So for this situation, it was clean from beginning to end as far as the process on the claiming. The client was resolved, was calm because most of our experiences were together, reviews and all that kind of stuff. Hey, y'all still good? You need to do this, you need to do that. They were pretty much up to date. They were the model as far as how the client participates. This was the model client because sometimes life insurance agents get a bad rap for doing annual reviews. Nobody ever talks about when the life insurance agent reaches out to the client and the client does not confirm to do annual reviews, right? So some of us service the client, but the client is like,
Oh, yeah.
I get to that whenever, you know what I mean? So this one, they were pretty good about it. They were a Medicare client. They were a life insurance client. At the time, I wasn't really into the annuity market. They had 2 kids. We paid the house off. I actually went to the funeral, handed the check. That ended up in many clients, but really the experience of feeling like the only person there, it's hard to verbalize what it feels like to be the only person with a check. You're there in a hard time, but you're the light. And this client, from their family to their friends to the pet, everybody is somber, and myself as well, because I want to make this clear. Just because I love that I had the experience to deliver death claims, I don't want to misrepresent that as the death claim is representative of the life. It's not representative of the life. That's still difficult to deal with, but all of the other things surrounding life, the hardship of surviving when you switch down to one social security check instead of two, the hardship of all the debts that this person may have had that shared, now it's like just one income plus just the social security check to try to clear, the hardship of the mortgage, all of these things, when you have the ability to relieve them and you don't have to worry about that anymore, and you can really hand over that check, it's while it's somber, it is something that will change your life forever. And it's so hard to put it into words how you feel in that moment, no matter what the number is. I've handed 1,000,000, 250, 300, 125,000. In every situation, no matter how large the amount was or how small the amount was, um, the feeling is still the same if it gets rid of all the problems of being one person now instead of two monetarily. I can't fix that you don't have the companionship anymore, but fixing how much things cost was just, it is weird. I don't know how to verbalize it because I'm naturally a joyous person. And so I'm happy to deliver a check. I'm not smiling at the funeral, of course, but I'm warm and friendly at this aspect of getting a chance to meet a lot of their family. And that helps their family to be more realistic about this, about death being a real thing. Because I don't know why humans do this, but life insurance, some people feel as though it'll never pay out. It's guaranteed to pay out because we're guaranteed to die. And so you have these conversations and you toil with clients on, can you handle the premium? Do you feel like you still want to continue on and all those kind of things? What do I need to do to make this easier before you surrender a policy? I've never gone to the option of talking about settlements. I'm sure you're aware of what settlements are.
Yeah, so settlements, you can sell a life insurance policy. Sometimes people get into financial trouble. It wasn't a properly structured policy. There could be a lot of different things going on. And they decide they want to sell their policy to somebody else. A lot of people don't even realize it's an option, that there is a secondary market. If for some reason you're in trouble with, let's say, a universal life insurance policy, which is typically what it is, you have options. There are investors out there who will buy them, and there are life settlement desks that will help facilitate that transaction. We as life insurance agents will make you aware of all of your options. So if you have permanent insurance contract, you always are going to have some options short of surrendering the policy. And even if you do surrender the policy, if it's a whole life policy, there's probably at least going to be some cash value that you will get.
There's one I was hesitant to talk about emotionally, but I'll cover it. One of my agents he bought a UL policy long ago, before he was my agent or before I knew him. And I got a call from the owner of the firm. Hey, D'Andre, I know you do a lot of auxiliary planning. We got a situation. And I said, okay, so what is it? And so he tells me about the agent and says he now has dementia. And his wife, she's looking at the policies because it seems like he's about to go into hospice. All right, so let me look at what he has. And he had lapsed very recently. But when he had lapsed, the premium had grew too much because you know how UL is, you pay the premium, but if you're not paying the max premium, it won't stay steady as far as how long it'll last. So you have to continue to fund more if the options haven't changed. So in his situation, he got sick, pretty old, and the options didn't change. Now we were looking at the barrel where his premium was out of control. And I remember having to finagle it in a way, get the wife to get a reverse mortgage on the house to pay the premiums. And then he passed maybe a year and a half afterwards. Was it a good experience? No. I was happy I fixed the problem, but still, it was too close to home for me.
Yeah, and
Situations
look
like
at how people like DeAndre and I are helping solve clients' problems. DeAndre brought in a reverse mortgage, a totally different tool to help solve your problems. We're not locked on one tool, whether it be life insurance or investments or using home equity or whatever. We're looking at your overall situation and seeing what is the challenge, what are your goals, and how can we best solve your problems and help you meet your goals, whatever that might be. Right? We are not product salesmen. I would actually say we are sales guys, but you have to understand what that means. It's not the negative stereotype. The real sales guy, all he does is goes around and adds value to people all day long. That's all he does. And there ends up being a sale in that because there could be multiple different things that solve your problem. DeAndre was not compensated on the reverse mortgage, but that is what helped to solve the client's problem. I also have helped clients get reverse mortgages because I'm helping to solve their problems. I have a
what
guy who I guess technically is not a client because he's never bought anything from me, but I helped him to get a reverse mortgage. That helped to solve his problem. I was never compensated on that.
now let's add some clarity. I wasn't compensated for the reverse mortgage, but I also was not compensated for the policy.
It was a policy he had from long ago.
It's so that the client could handle the increase in premiums by
Yes.
using the reverse mortgage as the income stream. So,
Yeah, it's the same thing. I get people
so
inherited all kinds of stuff. There are 2 types of policies which could be perfectly fine, but I tend to meet clients who have these kinds of policies where the client doesn't really understand what they have or why they have it. and they haven't received the level of service that they need. Those are typically universal life policies or
True.
whole life policies designed with a really skinny base premium. In both of those cases, those are policies that do require more maintenance, more understanding on the part of the client. And every time I get a client who has one of those policies, I'm the one who explains it to them, not the agent who sold it to them. They cannot get hold of him. And in some cases, we end up 1035 exchanging their universal life policy to a whole life policy. In some cases, we might keep the policy in force, but I'm basically doing the agent's job for him
Yep.
and not being compensated. And it's hard for me because I'm not the agent. I don't have access to all the information.
Yeah.
So I'm doing my best to explain to the client what they have, which they don't really understand. So again, there's nothing wrong with those policies per se, but what I tend to see is the opposite of what it should be. Those policies should get better service because they require more service, more maintenance to make sure that those policies stay in force and get maintained properly. Whereas the
Hmm.
sort of policies that I design, I give a lot of service, but the servicing is more about, okay, we took out this policy loan. What are we using it for? How are we going to do an amortized repayment schedule? The policy itself, bulletproof. There's not a lot that you have to do other than pay the premium, right?
This is what you're talking about in that situation and my last situation, is when an insurance agent understands the difference between being like righteous and good. A righteous person could say, I followed the letter of the law, I'm out of here. This client is not technically my client, so there's nothing for me to gain out of it. Therefore, I'm not going to help you. But a good person is like, I can't stand to see people get hurt. What can I do to fix this, even if it does nothing for me financially? How can I sleep at night? And sometimes this aspect of like death benefits paying out is the sleep at night aspect of life insurance. It's really cool to see cash value grow. That's cool. It's fun to see cash value grow. Just got off the line with a client who talked about buying her second truck this year with her cash value. That's fun. Those are fun conversations. This conversation, it's not easy. When you're going into a situation where there's a possibility of the need of a death benefit that possibly isn't there because of lapsing, like a recent lapse, just period. Death is not easy to handle for families, and sickness is not easy to handle for families either. So it's really important to be delicate around this. Servicing is not just providing what's needed, it's doing it for them in this particular case. As soon as you find out somebody has died or there's a lapse or pending lapse, you might want to call your client to find out, why is there a pending lapse? What's going on? And it might be because they're actually gone. And that's a sobering thing to hit home with you, because you're like, hey, I had a conversation with this person. And you might not want to leave them a 1-800 number. If you're local to them, being able to help them to understand how to file for the death certificate, complete their claim
Yep.
form.
Yep. I've gotten much more bold about this from my experience. Number one, I'm bold about secure your full human life value.
Yeah,
Clients receive it well because there's a genuine concern. We're
yeah.
not even talking about whole life. We're just talking about your
Just
full human life
uncharted.
value.
Period. Yeah.
I'm telling you, here's how much you should secure,
Hmm.
right? You're going to have to convince me why you think you need less. Secondly, what I do too is once we put that policy in force, I need to have a conversation with your beneficiaries.
Yeah.
Whoever the beneficiary is, let's talk now. And I'm going to develop a relationship with that person and walk them through the death claims process, which is very simple, very straightforward. Call me. I don't want you calling a 1-800 number when
I'll
you're
let you call.
emotionally distraught.
Yeah.
Here's my contact information. Store it somewhere safe. And of course, clients don't always say yes to all of this, but nobody's upset that I'm asking because they can see very clearly why I'm telling them their human life value and why I need to have a conversation with your beneficiary.
Mhm. Yeah. That some of that I wasn't comfortable doing until I had dealt with this enough. There was a book that kind of broke me down on this concept, and it was written by a CLU. His name is Mark Bertrand, and it's called Investments Don't Hug. He's going through different scenarios of he was supposed to deliver death benefits and some of the situations that have happened and how one missed opportunity, just to be frank with the client, turned into a disaster for the client's beneficiaries. And it really sobered me as to the responsibility I had, because I didn't recognize it at first. I didn't recognize the depth of that responsibility at first, because you have clients and you don't want to see them die. Like realistically, even though we're in the insurance industry and selling protection, selfishly, I don't want to ever know that you needed it. It's a hard thing to
Yeah.
deal with.
Yeah, Chris Kirkpatrick tells the story about a friend of his. He worked as an executive for Papa John's, I believe, lived a really good lifestyle with his wife and 2 children. And Chris gently tried to sell him life insurance. He's like, "Ah, yeah, right, right." Chris didn't stay on him. He didn't push it like he should have. That guy ended up having some serious health issues and was like, "Oh, maybe I need life insurance." Well, by that point, you're not insurable.
Qualify. Yeah.
The only insurance he had was, I think, $250,000 he had through his employer. I think he made at least $350,000 a year. He ended up dying less than a year later. Chris was with him, went with him to his therapy. He ended up dying. His family went from living a very nice upper middle class lifestyle to being destitute. The widow had to sell the house, move into a really small condo with her 2 kids with no idea how she's going to pay for college. And that was with a $250,000 death benefit, which gave nothing. That doesn't even count for 1 year of his income.
Yep. Yep.
Stories like that help that Chris has deep regret over, helps him to be more bold. Bold isn't even the right word. Just be responsible. All I'm doing
Just
is
be
telling my clients to be responsible. I've got to be the grown up in that conversation,
Yep.
right? I've got to be the grown up in that conversation. And it's
Yeah.
not always a pleasant conversation, but I don't think the clients receive it negatively, even if they say no, because they see I'm genuine and they understand exactly why I'm saying what I'm saying. DeAndre, I cannot morally or ethically recommend that you be less than fully insured. If you're a 35-year-old with 4 children, what is $1 million going to do for you?
What is the million? Yeah, it ain't nothing.
You
Yeah.
got you got to get fully insured.
I'm gonna speak to the new agent here that most of the time you're being villainized for a commission. And obviously, to help somebody to fully insure themselves probably involves making more money. That's just comments.
But if we're talking term, it's so little, who cares?
A
I'm at
little, but
$5 more
there's a
and the
nuance there.
client paid $5 more. What's
There is a nuance there that I think internally, like we go through, because I remember when I first hopped in the insurance industry, I was a secret insurance agent. The guy who I went to schools, I helped them with 403Bs. I had the ability to write life insurance, but I didn't want to be known as the insurance guy. That was
no,
not my desire, to be known as the insurance guy. And that's partially
no.
because the financial investment or the financial industry, especially the investment industry, has done a good job of making it seem like you can't be a professional at insurance,
Right,
right? And
right.
that you're just always a slimy guy and you have no
Yep.
integrity and everything. The 2 times in my life that I've ended up paying for funerals, because that client wasn't the only one, there was another person who was my best friend. And that was one of those situations. We were friends for maybe about 4 or 5 years, talked to him all the time. And he knew that I serviced schools, but that was it. We talked maybe once or twice about insurance, but it wasn't something I was peppering to him at all. I was very casual about it. And he got hit by a drunk driver. maybe a mile or two away from his home. And so his wife puts up a GoFundMe, and I'm feeling terrible because I could have fixed that. So, out of responsibility, I funded enough to pay for it. Still use your GoFundMe for whatever else, but just the service itself, I'll take care of that. When you go through those situations, it gives you a different appreciation for insurance. Because most of us come into the industry and we disrespect this aspect of the death benefit. We show no regard to it, no respect for it. I think that's happening even more frequently nowadays. It's obvious.
Yeah, I think that we in the infinite banking footprint need to do a better job of talking about the death. And there's two things that I'm
Yeah,
harping on
we
more:
do.
the importance of the death benefit and the importance of convertible term.
Right.
So, yeah, I love the infinite banking concept. I love reclaiming the banking function for yourself and building capital inside of a whole life insurance policy. I hope you live a long, healthy, fulfilled life.
Mm.
But if I come to you and you don't have homeowners insurance, you have a $500,000 house and no homeowners insurance, I'm going to tell you you need to get homeowners insurance,
You need
and there should
homeowners.
be some urgency around it. Let's get that in place now. What are you doing? You're exposed. And I feel the same way when I come across a client, which is every single one of them, who is not fully insured. There is urgency, not because of a sales pitch, but because you need to protect yourself and your family. And to your point, DeAndre, the other thing I've gotten stronger about is the temporary insurance agreement. When you do an application for a policy,
Yeah, yeah.
it takes a little more work, but you can set it up such that if the person dies during the application process, they will still be covered. A lot of people ignore that because it takes more effort, it takes more work. And what are the odds it'll happen? Well, why would you expose yourself to more risk? Yes, it takes more work from both you and the client. That's true. But I had a client who became uninsurable during the process. At the time we started the application process, he was insurable. During the application process, he had a cardiac event and became uninsurable. And we were not able to get him a policy. It's about protection. Yes, we want to do the infinite banking concept, but the first step is the protection. Get that in place. And that death benefit, if it's with a good convertible term policy, also secures your right to do the infinite banking in the future. And I want to be talking not to agents here, DeAndre. I want to be talking to people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. None.
No one has ever explained to them what their human life value is and why they
Mhm.
need to protect it. They probably know what their house is worth. So, are there other stories that would be helpful for not an agent, but an average person to understand
Well,
why this is important?
this is a sobering concept. So I could do a number of success stories and, oh, the client took the death benefit and started real estate. I don't want to go in that direction.
Right.
I
No,
I've
correct.
had clients who have done that, and that's beautiful. That's a win. But I've never been into selling. Really,
No,
more so about
no.
the sobering aspect. This isn't a selling podcast, anyways, but this is education. I would say another situation that happened, and this is more so about communication and families. The breakdown of life insurance, the breakdown of why families say, oh, we had a policy, but it never paid out, or it didn't pay out when so and so died, is because of a lack of communication. It's a huge lack of communication between spouses, oftentimes. I had a Medicare client. They weren't my life insurance client, but she knew that I was knowledgeable about life insurance, but she thought they were taken care of, which was why, they weren't my life insurance clients. It was just like, oh, we got that taken care of. We don't.
By the way, that's why I've gotten much stronger about, oh, you're taken care of. Great. Send me the policy. I'll be happy to review it. Send it over. Because in the back of my mind, I know I can guarantee you, you're not taken care
Just,
of. And I'm not going to let it go because I care about you. It's not because I'm trying to sell you. I probably
yeah,
won't make a sale. I'll probably send you back to that agent and say, do this, this, this. Great. Whatever you have, send it to me. I'll be happy to review it. But don't just dismiss me and tell me you're taken care of. I'll be the judge of that. I'm the expert here, not you.
At this time, I wasn't as bold about that as well. Experience teaches you this stuff. You
It's
learn
just
more
human
from the
nature. We
negative
learn much
experience.
more from the negative experiences. So that's why I
Because
want to hear this story.
this woman had been my Medicare client maybe for 4 years, and she knew that I did insurance, but she was just like, "Oh, we're good." And she calls me and says, "You know what? I can't focus. I know that the policy is up there in the room, so she sends me upstairs, tells me the drawer it should be in. And sure enough, the policy is there, but the policy had lapsed 3 years prior. And she's thinking that, DeAndre, I'm asking you to help me with the claim process. And there's nothing to claim because he stopped paying premiums without saying anything to his wife. And his health was getting worse and worse. Here she was really that she had $1 million coming to her. I think it was one and a quarter. Being upstairs, being alone, because she's downstairs, she's still at the kitchen counter, and reading all of it. I don't even know what made me read it thoroughly before I even went downstairs to realize that the policy wasn't in place anymore because he had notices also right there. And there were literally notices right there. My heart dropped. I had no idea what to say, how to feel. Um, I was without any options. They had 300,000 left on their house. Is
This is
this one of
why,
those?
yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
that was
it is
horse.
a lifelong relationship.